But for now, it's...
All right, we're rolling.
You're doing the intro, yeah?
Yeah, follow my beat again.
Yes, sir. I'm so excited. You comfy, cozy?
You good to go?
3, 2, 1.
Bang, bang.
Hello, 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 hello.
What's up?
I have a massive headache, and it's threatening to be a migraine, and I can't see out of my left eye. And since you're sitting on my left side, that could be
Close your eye.
fun.
Just close your eye.
No, because now it looks like I'm winking at everybody.
You don't need to see me, you just need to hear me.
Okay.
So what's up?
What are you doing this weekend? This podcast is going to be coming out in a couple of weeks, but for us, it's Mother's Day weekend.
Correct. What am I doing for Mother's Day?
Are you celebrating your mother and your wife?
I'm celebrating my wife tomorrow. Me and the boys are going to take her out to dinner.
Good.
So we're doing dinner, and I'm going to postpone my mom's until next weekend. And the only reason for that is my sister is in finals, and her schedule's all over the place. So we just said, you know what, let's just put it one more week. Plus, my mom doesn't even care anyways.
No.
So I'll call her, and she's good. How about you?
We have a big family lunch tomorrow. My brother moved to Utah, and my sister-in-law stayed here to get the house all packed up, and she's actually moving this weekend out to Utah, so we're having a bon voyage and Mother's Day, and then I get to play with all my nieces, which I'm super excited about.
Dope.
Yeah, my family's super competitive, so, you know, I'm going to bring a card game and see who is still standing at the end of it.
I hear you.
Last time I was the one left screaming and storming out of the house, so hopefully it's not me this time again.
That does not surprise me.
It should. I'm actually the most rational in my family.
But you're a sore loser.
I really am. I hate to lose. Well, I just don't do it often. It's hard to be good at something that just never happens.
You're still a sore loser. Sure.
On the rare occasion it happens.
True. So you ready?
I am. Who do you got for me today?
Well, I told you I had some good news and I had some bad news for you. So this is part 2 of the bad news. Is not necessarily. This is my cousin Jocelyn.
Hi.
Hello.
This is the bad news? That's not nice. We're just going to ignore him for now.
No, why am I bad news?
Put your headphones on.
Oh.
Right there. There we go.
Oh, okay.
That was a nice.
It's always bad news for me.
You're not making it any better.
Because they're always going to talk about me.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We're 100% going to talk about you.
Gives you fuel.
Yeah, 100% we're going to do that.
See why it's bad news?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
There you go. So this is Jocelyn, my cousin.
Hi, Jocelyn. It's really nice to meet you. I'm glad you came in today.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So when you sat down before we started rolling on anything, we were getting into a bunch of stuff that you want to get into and talk about. So I'm really excited about that. But the first thing is I want to let everybody know the main reason we brought you in is you used to work in an adult novelty store.
Yes.
And so I want to know all the fun stories, but I have 2 questions off the bat before we go into the weird stories. I want to know what is the weirdest toy that you've ever seen, and then I want to know what is the most frequently purchased item.
Okay. We can do that. Oh, should I start
Yeah,
now?
go for it. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. So hello, how are you doing? Nice to meet you. So yeah, I worked at a sex shop for about 3 years. You know, it's interesting because the language that's used around adult stores, I always like to. It's interesting because some people use the word like deviant or weird, but it's really interesting because when you're working at a sex shop, it's almost like you enter an alternate universe where everyone in the world thinks is weird is actually normal.
Sure.
And whatever everyone thinks is normal is actually weird. So it's interesting because once you enter that space, it's actually really normalized a lot of the things that you hear. But I would say the most like abnormal for society standards that I can remember. So there's this thing called sounding. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
Okay, so sounding is essentially something like a metal spiral that you actually put on the urethra of your body.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you tap on it, it creates vibrations that actually give sensation to the urethra and like the, I guess you could say essentially the pee hole of like
Sure,
the body.
sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've
How
heard
do you even insert that?
yeah, it's
Like
very,
now, it's got to be small.
it's very small.
It has to be what the size of like a UED? Is it UD?
UA,
UAD?
IUD.
IUD. IUD.
We're not blowing things up.
Maybe you are.
But I mean, sure, but the IUD I would still think would be too big for the urethra.
Yeah, the
On both
urethra's
for the
tiny.
female for sure, and definitely a male.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's kind of the same process.
For those of you who are not watching, he's actually simulating what it would look like inserting it, and
because
your penis hole must be huge if you're doing 2 fingers. Is all I'm saying. We're just gonna let you sit there.
you know.
But it's gotta be small, right?
Yeah, it's very tiny, and it's actually not supposed to be inserted. It's supposed to be inserted just on the tip, but then when you like actually like tap it, it creates like these like sounding like vibrations that actually move
Really?
through the body.
Hold
Yeah.
up. We're gonna do a little research break here, because now I need to see what this is. Now I'm excited.
Yeah, now
I've
I'm
never
nervous
heard-
that I'm not giving the right information, so let's look this up together.
And this is what we do.
I know. Sorry, I didn't know we were gonna talk about sounding. Otherwise, I would have already looked this up.
What does it say?
Well, now it's. Hold on. Whoa! This is just a horrible title. The Guide to Sounding, the kink where you stick a rod up your urethra. All right. Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So does it make her? Is it the whole? Is it a different sensation? Is it supposed to make them?
It's an advanced form of sexual play, with high risk of infection, injury, and potential trauma.
Sure.
Sign me up.
So sometimes.
Oh, it's for the male penis.
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, what other penises are there? There's only the male ones.
It's interesting too because so the point of that is that like whenever you're masturbating or like having sexual play or whatever, it's actually supposed to kind of tease your body to where it like keeps down the ejaculation, so it kind of like
Really?
pushes back the ejaculation.
Oh, the cock ring.
Kind of, except it's more intense because it's literally
Right.
pushing down
Whoa.
on the
You
ejaculation.
don't want to. You're not going to be sounding
No,
tonight. That's
no.
not a thing for you.
That's not my thing. No, sorry.
All right. I mean,
But
I was
also
going to
when
offer
the
to buy one for Father's Day, but now.
But also when the ejaculation actually moves through, it's really pleasurable.
I'm sure it's fucking intense.
Yeah, it's
Oh, it's
super
probably
intense.
super intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got something pushing down on your urethra while you're oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'd rather do amyl nitrate.
What's that?
You know what amyl nitrate is?
No.
Amyl nitrate is like this gas that you inhale,
No.
and then it's supposed to say. They say that.
Is that the popper?
Yeah, like poppers.
Okay, I know what a popper is.
Yeah,
Sorry.
same thing,
Yeah.
same thing. And they say that your climax is amazing.
Well, you know, a popper is something you're actually supposed to take before you take any drug because it intensifies any.
Yes, correct.
Any drug.
That's what amyl nitrate does. It intensifies everything.
Got you.
So if your orgasm is like a 5, it pushes it to a 15. Like it's intense.
Why? I want to try popper now.
Mhm.
There you go.
Fun fact also, if you ever purchase a popper in California, they'll never call it a popper. They'll say, oh, are you looking for a nail polish remover? Or they say, oh, are you
Oh.
looking for cleaner? And then you go, no, I want a popper. And they'll say, no, you want cleaner. Because you're not technically supposed to sell it for that purpose.
Really?
Mhm.
Nice.
But they are huge money makers.
Oh,
Oh,
bad.
I mean, just listening to it now, like I'm literally leaving here and going to go buy some.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I need
yeah.
I want nail polish remover when
Yeah.
I go.
Yeah. Or just say poppers, but they can't tell
They can't
you.
tell me that's what it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And
it's
if you
like-
ask them how to use it, they won't tell you.
oh yeah.
They'll
It's
say,
How do I
liability.
use it?
Some poppers you're supposed to put in a mask.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to inhale it. So
Yeah.
you're supposed to like
Understood.
break it. I guess the easiest way would be like a painter's mask.
Yeah. To be honest, because I never explained it, I don't think I ever really learned how to use it. But yeah, it's
My
essentially.
YouTubing later is
So
what you're saying?
Basically, what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to inhale it. So what I would think is get like a painter's mask, break it into the mask, put it on. You are inhaling it while you're playing with yourself, and it intensifies.
Sounds like the most funny thing ever, truthfully.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm a hard in.
Could
Alright.
not keep it in stock, literally.
I
Really?
believe it.
Could not. Yeah.
I
Wow.
believe it.
They would sell out. I think that I would do inventory every week. I'm not kidding you, of each like actual like container of a popper, we would order like by the 300s, by the 500s.
Wow.
And within 2 weeks, I would have to reorder. Like, that's how popular they are. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And one thing I do know.
I'm like wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. I'm so excited.
And it's just this part that's crazy. It's really, really high in the gay community.
I was just about to say that I just read about poppers in the gay community. I mean, an hour before I came here tonight. Yeah. Interesting. I think I gotta do it.
Do it.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, do
I'll
it.
report back next week. I mean, I probably won't.
So sounding was one. And what was the other question?
My other question is, what was now I think you already answered. I said, what was the most purchased there? And it must be the poppers, then I would assume.
Or would it be purchased toy?
Yeah, the like most popular
Well, I mean,
toy.
I think toys are...
There still has to be a popular one.
Alright.
Yeah.
We can go there.
Okay, so I would think the most popular toy is one called the We Vibe. So something
Oh,
that's
100%.
like, right?
Do you
So
have
know what
one?
it is? I have two.
They're
no. I have two.
Phenomenal.
Oh, no, but we should, okay, yes, let's talk about the We Vibe, but we should also
However-
talk about the Womanizer.
Okay, the womanizer we will get into because that
Yes.
is sent from God above,
Uh-huh.
and that's proof that God's a female,
Yes.
truthfully. But the We Vibe, my only issue with it is I feel numb for like a day after, and I don't think that's good. Don't look at me like that. It's an amazing little toy.
Well, then that's why you have your Womanizer, right?
Okay, the
Because you get
womanizer
numb,
is bomb.
and then you use your Womanizer, and it
just
rejuvenates the
sucks
sensitivity.
It sucks the orgasm out. It is the best thing in the whole world.
Okay, so maybe we should explain what the We Vibe and the Womanizer
go ahead.
is. Okay, so
while I'm sitting here just
I know, just raving about all
time
of
to
them.
go.
So the We Vibe is like a C-shaped toy that goes inside the vagina, that applies pressure to the G-spot, and goes on top of the clitoris and applies vibrations on the clitoris. So it's typically
Kind of like the rabbit.
No.
kind of, but
Yes
it's
and no.
C-shaped.
Yes.
Okay,
So it's like a clamp.
So it's like
Yeah, a
new,
clamp.
it's a new improved rabbit.
Kind
You
of.
don't have to move in and out. It clamps onto both and vibrates both at the same time.
Like I said, a new version of the rabbit.
Well,
Because you're thinking of the rabbit as the dildo function with the rabbit on top. With the dildo function, you move it in and out, and so you're not getting the vibration consistently.
Am I right or wrong? Wasn't the last version of the rabbit a vibrator also?
it is. So, but the biggest
And the
difference.
head used to spin, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
the head could spin, it can thrust,
Yes,
it can
correct.
now it like totally legit thrusts.
Really?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a few. But the
Okay, I haven't
difference,
been to an adult novelty store in 12 months, and I feel like I'm behind the times.
So we know where we're going after this podcast.
1,000%. It's a group trip. Let's all go.
and I can educate you on all the toys. Yeah,
that I've
definitely.
missed out on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so much more coming up too. But the biggest difference between like the We Vibe and like the rabbit though is that it's called We Vibe because you're supposed to wear it during sex, so that your partner
Right.
is supposed to be like penetrating while at the same time that you're wearing it.
Gotcha.
So like technically like your partner is like the penetrating
Right.
part or
He's the
whatever.
dildo portion, well,
Yeah.
or she. Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly. And but the cool thing about the We Vibe too is that you can use it for like nipple play. You can use it as like a penis sleeve as well because it can move up and down, and you can use it. So if you open it up and put it under your throat, you can also use it during oral, so your partner gets vibrations through your
Oh,
mouth.
wow.
That is a phenomenal tip.
Yeah, you can also use it for anal and like give stimulation on the perineum. And the coolest thing about it is you can control it any place in the world through Bluetooth.
Wow.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I'll be
Technology.
Yeah.
Gotta love technology.
Technology just helps us have better sex.
It-
Is what
it-
it does.
Seriously.
Until your Wi-Fi goes down, you're like, fuck!
I know.
Fucking doesn't work, data, fuck.
Always keep it charged.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then the womanizer, which I think everybody needs to know about the womanizer because it really is the best sexual toy for women. It's phenomenal.
It's amazing.
I know people who have never had an orgasm that had their first orgasm using the womanizer.
Yes.
That's
100%.
sad.
Well,
Yeah.
for some people it's more difficult. It's just how the body is. But this womanizer has found... I'm going to let you describe it. But, it's such a beautiful toy.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's amazing. Honestly, the first time I saw it, I thought it was a joke. I'm
well,
like,
sure.
really?
It looks
This is a
weird, right?
It sounds like a motor, like it goes, and it's like, it looks
so
like
this little weird sucky thing.
yeah,
that
looks like an
a
ear
point-
thermometer.
Yes.
You're just like, what am I supposed to do? Like, when I got it, I have like 3, by the way. But when I got my first, I didn't touch it for 6 months. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, there's no way this is pleasurable. Like, it's clunky, it's ugly. I hate the name because not all people that have clitorises are women. So it's like, how can, like, whatever. So I was like, the name sucks, the toy sucks, I don't want to use it. I finally used it and I was like, holy crap.
I fucked up for 6 months.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's essentially
Like I feel bad for you that you missed
yeah,
out
I
on
know.
6 months.
It was horrible. It was the worst 6 months of my life after I realized how great it could have been.
No, I'm still-
But it's so it's like a suction cup that goes around the clitoris. It traps air around the clitoris, so it sucks on the clitoris. What that does is it draws blood to it, enlarges it, and makes it more sensitive. It's perfect for like to have it as a primer. So if you use it right before oral, like it gets you nice and plump and sensitive. It's great if you just like I just need an orgasm on the go. You can use it during sex, so it gives you clitoral stimulation while at the same time giving you like penile stimulation or penetrative stimulation. But it's amazing too because like there was like a video on BuzzFeed where they actually like timed their orgasms. I think someone had an orgasm within like 47 seconds.
Sure.
Yeah, and when it came out in Germany because Germans know what's up when it comes to like sex. They did a study with 200 women. Half of the women actually experienced an orgasm in 5 minutes. The other half experienced it with like under a minute.
Yes.
Wow.
It's intense. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. It is a gift from God.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And it retails for?
I believe the most recent one is $219.
Oh, a little less than I thought.
Yeah.
It's worth every dollar.
Yeah, and then they have like smaller versions where there's like 100, and it just depends. Like the wand is a little more expensive, and
Makes sense.
yeah, there's like a keychain size that was like keychain size is like $79.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's not as intense as the other one.
That makes sense.
It's
Mm.
like, it's like the New Age pocket rocket.
Yeah,
New Age,
yeah.
basically.
Better than the pocket rocket.
Well, that's
but
what I'm saying. It's just pocket rocket started it.
Yeah,
It developed.
Yeah, definitely.
that's awesome. So we had talked about that you are thinking about going into sexual therapy. Did working and the sex shop help you realize that it was something you wanted to do, or have you always been interested in the sex industry?
So I grew up. So I guess since I'm Carlos's cousin, everyone knows I am brown. I am Latina. And I grew up very conservatively. My mom, Catholic, never talked to me about sex. Was always like, I can never have sex. Sex is horrible.
Well, let me interrupt for just 1 second.
Mhm.
How old were you when you had sex?
I was-
Your first time.
18.
Okay.
I was 18.
Wow, that's older than a lot of people.
Yeah, because I mean, I had the fear of God in me.
Sure.
I was like, I'm gonna go to hell if I have sex,
Yes.
you know. But it was interesting because when I did, my mind just opened up, and I realized this is such a beautiful gift that we have, and it's so sad that not a lot of people are able to discuss it and really talk about it. And that's when I was like, I really want to be a sex educator. And then I started doing sex education with a collective called Coochie Los Angeles, where we did like comprehensive sexual educational workshops for queer and trans people of color in low-income communities. And I loved it. And after that, I'm like, oh my God, like I want to spread the word of like owning your sexuality, owning your body, like knowing how to not only express like how to give your, like how to tell someone to give you an orgasm, but you give yourself an orgasm. And to know that like your sexuality is not in the hands of a man, that you own your body was like huge for me. Yeah. And I'm like, I want to give this gift to the rest of the world, you know, and that's kind of how it happened. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still with the same organization?
So they were a collective, and it kind of died down, so not at the moment, but I always shout them out whenever I can because they completely changed my life.
That's great.
Yeah.
And where are you on becoming a sex therapist?
So it's kind of interesting. I graduated with my master's last year, and I decided after working at a sex shop for a few months and the universe kind of taking me on some left turns that I am not doing that right now. That is definitely something that I want to get back to. It's my passion. It's something that I love. I actually went to a sex shop the other day to shop for a friend's bridal shower, and just being there, I felt so at home, and I'm like, I really want to get back to it.
What did you get your master's in?
Social work.
Okay.
So you can do it like in social work or clinical psychology or marriage and family therapy, but I wanted to get my LCSW so that I can be certified as a sex therapist.
Oh, right on.
Do you have more schooling you have to take to get there? Or is it now training?
So the sad thing about being a sex educator or sex therapist is that academia does not have specifically like human sexuality as a form of like they would consider therapy.
How's that possible?
It's fucked up.
Because in our society, especially in the U.S., we're a very
Now?
repressed group, and we are still a large portion of our country still feels that sex is a private thing that should not be discussed.
Explain this
It's
to me.
only now, I would say within the last 2 or 3 years, where people are starting to be more vocal about their sexuality, and we're starting to understand the human right factor to sex and pleasure and what it actually means to one another. But it's been a long road to get to people to be more open about sex.
So let me understand something. We have Jewish studies, African American studies, Latino studies, Hispanic studies, purple studies, yellow studies. We know people have been having sex since the 60s of the sexual revolution, the 70s, 80s, AIDS, everything, and they don't have a class on
We're a
fucking...
very religious, repressed society.
So there are human sexuality classes, but you can't major in human
Are
sexuality.
you fucking kidding me?
No, it's just 100% crap.
Yeah.
In fact, you have to take certain workshops outside of academia to even be a certified sex therapist.
What a bunch of bullshit.
Yep.
Like, I don't have to have the background she has, and I can take these workshops and be a sex therapist tomorrow. Well, in 6 weeks.
So why don't you just do that?
Well, I mean, I will eventually, and that's pretty much what I did with Coochie Los Angeles. And a lot of the education that I did came from working at a sex shop and also creating my own workshops. Like, a lot of it just came from that. Honestly, what I know about sex and human sexuality and anatomy did not come from school.
Sure.
Oh, I
Like,
could see
none
that.
of it came
Oh,
from
100%.
school.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I think that I've always told you this, that the only reason universities make you take all these courses is just to make money off of you.
Sure.
If you went in, took your courses, you'd be out in 2 years. Done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but they got to make money off of you.
Yeah, and they don't teach you these things.
No,
they
they
don't
don't.
teach you things that are important.
Done.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because so there is an organization, which I'm pretty sure is the one that you were talking about, ASEC,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So the American Association for Sexual Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. They're pretty much one of the only recognized large organizations in the U.S. that actually gives you a legitimate certification for being a sex educator or being a sex therapist. Which is interesting because like you would have to go through them. I mean, there are others, but they're the most recognized.
Correct. I mean, that's the one I know of.
Yeah.
I actually think, I'm sure I'll get flack for this, but I actually think that anybody who's going to be teaching 5th to 8th graders where they discuss sexual body changes for our kids should actually go through that program so that they understand what they're talking about, other than here is a banana and here's a condom and let me put on a movie.
Yeah.
Do you know in schools, this enrages me. I have daughters, so this is what enrages me. I don't know how you feel about this. They do not teach about the female orgasm in schools. They do not teach girls how to protect themselves from sexual diseases other than wear a condom or abstinence.
Mm-hmm.
They do not discuss anything other than penile insertion into the vagina. They do not talk about anything from the LGBTQ community. They do not talk about anything other than male and female relations and how it creates a baby. And that is our sex education to our children when they're just learning their bodies.
Well, let's start with this. The movie that they show you is like made in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like,
I mean, it's
let-
Bush all the way,
yeah.
for sure.
Let's just start with that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay.
And you know, it starts with the woman screaming in pain.
Yeah.
And, like, it's sent to scare girls from having
Oh.
sex, not boys, girls. This is the first time my daughter just went through the sex education, and I asked her, did they talk about the female orgasm? She goes, I don't even know what that is. So I had to sit down and talk to her about it. But she said that her class was one of the few classes in the last few years where they're now making the boys and girls watch it together. And I think that is the most important thing.
Well, you see, I went to...
I think boys should know what goes on with girls, and girls should know what goes on with boys. Girls think they have it easy. Our stuff happens in the bathroom. For boys, you walk around with everything changing in your body.
I went to Catholic school up until 11th grade, but in my health class, it was boys and girls, and we saw.
Did you?
Yeah.
No, mine was
And
100% separated.
and-
What was yours? Were you together or something?
Catholic school separated.
Separated.
Really?
Yeah.
Not at
Yeah.
not at my
What's
school.
it?
I went to St. John's.
Really?
Yeah.
And it was together?
And it was
know
together.
what? St. John's, they're a really progressive Catholic school though.
But when I was there, it wasn't.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I was surprised that in health class, we're sitting in health class, we're okay, we're going to talk about sex ed, and boom, put the movie on.
Maybe your teacher was woke. And they were like, you need to
he was-
maybe.
together.
Maybe. Or he just didn't even. I only want to do this once. We're
I
all
know.
together.
Let's
Like,
just get it over.
Maybe.
with.
I remember my sex ed class was a male teacher who read off the paper, and what he said about masturbation is a form of self-pleasuring and should not be done.
Mm-hmm.
Period. That was my sex education.
And I also want to make a point to what you said earlier, because this is what got me into sex education also, is like, okay, so there's like a spectrum, right? You're all the way over here on the left or over here on the right. And over here on the left is like, let's talk about abstinence, let's talk about protecting from STDs, blah, 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 blah. The issue with that is that after a while, okay, I get it. I know how to wear a condom. I know how to get birth control. I get that. When are we going to go all the way over here to the right where we're actually talking about, okay, now let's talk about how can you make your sex life fucking kick ass? Like,
Sure.
Let's talk about the toys. Let's talk about the levels of orgasm. Let's talk about the positions. Let's talk about really embracing your sexuality. But we can never get there because we can't even get the basics right.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
You know what? I think a lot of it has to come from upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how you were raised. You just mentioned that my aunt was very, you know, conservative, where my dad was opposite. He's like, as soon as he knew that we were all sexually active, like, you know, here's a condom. He was proactive, not, you know, he was always like, I'm going to tell you how it is because I don't want to hear that you didn't know.
Yeah.
That was his style, you know. So going back to that, I think that it's the upbringing. A lot of people, you know, parents are like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. It's like, why
I don't
not?
understand that.
Yeah,
My
totally.
daughter and I talk about it maybe once a month.
Dude,
she's 12. She's interested in it.
My little one is 8, and he takes 20-minute showers.
Oh.
Right? And I'm like, leave him alone.
At 8?
At 8. With my son does, so that's a different story. But
That's a woke kid.
Yeah.
Well, that's normal. I mean, kids are...
Well, masturbation for kids is normal as
Yeah.
young as 3.
so my
That's
kid,
normal
my
for
kid
children.
takes a name in the shower, and my wife's like, I'm like, leave him alone.
Mhm.
Leave him alone. Let him do his thing. I said, just a warning: if the door's locked, knock. Don't walk in, because you're not gonna want to see him fucking, you know, jerking his monkey. You know.
Yeah, and he's not going to want that memory.
Yeah.
Right.
His mom walked
So
in.
you know, and me, I'd be like, handle it, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know.
And also, not talking about sexuality, also you're handicapping your children because then they don't
100%.
have the vocabulary to say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with what's happening, or
Agreed.
this is what's happening, I'm not okay with this, or to say, I'm enjoying this is pleasurable, this is okay, I am touching my body, like that is okay. Like one of the things that we discuss a lot in my workshops is talking about private versus public versus dirty versus clean.
Agreed.
Right? Is like saying, okay, you know, because we, especially in the Latino community, it's like, oh, it's so sucio, like it's dirty, don't touch yourself.
Yeah, I don't understand
You know?
that. Like totally, like.
Yeah.
And I think it has to come from like the Catholic religion, and they're
No,
probably.
I think it's religion, period. Because
Ma-
I mean, we were told the same thing growing up, and I'm not Catholic.
Yeah, you're Mormon, so I
Mm.
guess you're right. You know, the whole religion thing is just that they look down upon it, but yet again, they want you to have 20 million kids so you can give 10% of your pay to the fucking church. Go fuck yourself.
Well, I've just never understood why sex is only okay if you're married. Why is something that is a true joy, as you stated earlier, is only acceptable between a man and a woman if they're married? It just doesn't make sense to me that we've been given such a wonderful gift, but don't use it, don't talk about it, and be completely upset if anybody wants to talk to you about it.
I will give you
I just
another.
don't prescribe to that.
I'll give you another spin on it. So let's say Catholic, right? Girl gets pregnant out of wedlock,
Oh gosh.
right? She can't have an abortion,
Mhm.
right? But yet again, they'll baptize the child to bring the child into God's world that was created out of wedlock, but they still want your money. It's so hypocritical. It's fucking ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And also on that subject is talking about like, what does that mean? Having sex after marriage. What does marriage mean, right? Marriage means that you're bind to one person for the rest of your life. So now we're talking about like sexuality, but we're also talking about monogamy, the importance that society places on monogamy. When like in reality, you don't need to be with one person. Like polyamory is a very common thing in our world, and no one talks about that too.
Yeah.
You know, like we have that idea of like polygamy, like one man, a lot of women. But what I'm talking about is polyamory.
Agreed. Yeah.
And
Polyamory is not polygamy.
exactly, and like
And
also,
the two do get tied together for some reason.
Because of the poly.
because of the I guess
That's
I
why.
mean, but they're just so different words.
No. But as soon as they hear poly, they just link them together because people are fucking stupid. Seriously.
I need to agree, but it's so true.
It's true. As soon as they hear the poly, they're like, oh, it's together.
I mean, polygamy is a form of polyamory. It's just more one-sided towards normally male. I mean, you don't often hear about a female polygamist,
You never do.
but they do exist.
Do they?
Yes.
Oh, I've never heard it.
It's a much rarer form of polygamy, but they do exist.
Okay, I've never heard it.
Yeah, it's very, very, very rare. It's normally a patriarchal program, really.
No.
But it's interesting because you realize how much the world and society puts so many rules on your sexuality. You can only marry one person. Once you marry that person, then you're allowed to have sex with that one person for the rest of your life. It's like, dude, just let people do them. Let them just let us just enjoy our bodies, enjoy the way that we want to enjoy them, and love the people that we want to love.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's for some reason that we are archaic in that way and in that vision. And you would think that now that with, once again, we always relate to social media with all the exposure and all the shows and this and that, you would think we would be up to speed now where they would change these things, but it seems like they're regressing to worse.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's like, I think we're in the middle of a melting pot of a movement right now where you have people who are trying to keep sexuality in the box it's always been in, and then you have this younger generation and people who are slightly more enlightened in terms of sexuality, where they're starting to fight against that form of repression, and now you have the one side that wants to hold on even harder, so they're making moves that are almost violent against sexuality right now because they need to hold on to that stereotype, the monogamy, the marriage, this is how it's always been, versus everyone who's like, yeah, that doesn't actually feel right. That doesn't feel like what a human's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it's a very hard spot for both sides to be in right now.
And realistically, let's just say we had a couple that got married at 21, right? You grow, you evolve. You're not the same person at 21 that you are at 41.
Agreed. Yeah.
I mean, you're a complete different person. If you're going to school, you're studying, you're working. So you're married, right? Let's say you're a couple, you're married, and you're growing together. If one or the other doesn't grow with you, that's where the split comes. So that's why at 41, you're not the same person. What pissed you off at 21, at 41, you're like, fuck, I don't care.
Yeah, that's true.
Seriously, come
now,
out of the way.
You are